full anchor. I think what I'm going to do is put it in slow. Well, no, I'm not going to. I was thinking about putting it slow forward. I think that'll be too risky. I'll leave it. All right, I'm going to leave the windshield up. Well, it's 9:30. Rocks on both sides. See if I can figure out where it is. $10 beaver lodge over there. Looks like it's on the other side of that island. Boy, it looks pretty shallow on both sides. I don't know if I can get through there. Yeah, may have to come in from the northeast. Well, which way do I go? Only 6 feet deep, so it may not work. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look good at all. I don't like it. I don't like it. So. Gotta come in from the other side. Canoe could go through there. Rocks all over. Comes up to about 2.5 feet. Well, we tried and we lost. Once we get out, we're down. It's really shallow. Well, just looking for a spot here, but I'm not seeing anything. There's a kind of a marshy area here to port. It's calm in there, so it would be a decent anchorage, but if it's open, maybe I'd find a campground here. That this is the harbor entrance coming up here. But looking at this, if the wind goes southwest, that would be more exposed, so I'm not sure that's the wisest thing to do. I might go on the other side of this point. It seems flat in here. There's a lot rougher where I came in terms of the bottom. You see what we got in here. I have a feeling that maybe what I should do instead of parking in the anchorage is to park back here, because the wind is going to go southwest. Well, let's see if this is protected enough from the south wind. Go in here. So it looks like I'm anchoring again, not camping, tied up to shore. They said southeast winds are too. South and southeast. Well, I don't know. There is no great anchorages in this area. I think I like this better back here. Looks like a pretty weedy bottom. Alright, coming up, so we'll turn around here. Bringing us around here. Seems to be holding. I'll go up and take a feel of it. We'll still be here, just to make sure. Pressure on it even in here. Like I said. It's holding. So, we're here. Not exactly where I was planning to be, but we're here. Autopilot seemed to function pretty well. Didn't seem to struggle with it as much as it. There were some problems yesterday with it, but it didn't seem to be acting up today. It's still pretty cloudy. My depth 6.6, 7.3. When it swings in, it's about 5.5 feet. That's good. Sand or weedy bottom, muddy bottom probably. And I'm kind of in the center of Asif Islands, but I ducked behind an island here that I thought might be better than going in that little cove, because if the wind switches southwest, which they said it would, that would make that more exposed than this is. And at least if the winds go southeast, I've got Wesab Island, it's called, W-E-S-A-B. That's kind of a protection from that direction. So I think this is the best solution to maybe not a great situation. Anyway, so we'll stop the tracking on that. Tracks, I labeled the tracks by the lake, and this is N2 because it's the second leg of Nipigon. We only went 5.8 miles, so that's hardly anything. Started at 9:25 and we ended at 10:47. And I didn't see any campgrounds, although there's supposed to be one on this side I went by, but I didn't see it. That's interesting because this says 5.74 miles on it. Well, tomorrow, that's the other thing we could have done, I guess, is gone over to Ray Lake. That wasn't that much further. But I didn't like that South Sea trying to get in that river. It's kind of a river that goes up into a lake. He claims I could get into it. Looks interesting. I wouldn't mind doing that. Let's see, where's that camps? There is definitely mosquitoes up here. So, I don't know. There's a lot of places. Well, we'll see what our weather is tomorrow, and then maybe we can experiment in there a little bit. But that chart he gave me helped out getting in here, that's for sure. Everybody's fishing, and I'm not. I didn't mention it, but I managed to bring all my fishing, everything I needed for fish to cook, to catch, and all the rest. And then I left my fillet knife home. I swear, I can't go on a trip without forgetting something. Again, it wasn't on the checklist, and when you don't have it on the checklist, you end up leaving it home. All right, let's look at the weather here. Maybe we better get an update. 59 degrees, it's saying. South wind at 11. That's about right. Supposed to get up into the 60s today. They're calling for rain tomorrow. Today, 12 p.m., they're supposed to be partly cloudy, which I'm kind of experiencing right now. It's getting close at least. Winds increasing to about 18 by 4 p.m. right out of the south, so we'll see. I hope this protects me. And it's going to stay south pretty much all night. 6 a.m. it'll start going southeast a bit and then go south again. Pretty much stay south. So it looks like through the night, and this should protect me because we got south wind right now and I'm nice and calm in here. So far, that looks good. All right, let's go ahead and stop the tracking and we'll send a okay. Good evening, folks. I'm trying a different arrangement because the way the bow is laid to the anchor road, sitting on the bow seemed like a more enjoyable evening than on the aft deck, which is facing the trees. I'm setting out here and trying this camera angle. You're only seeing water, unfortunately, because it's up too high underneath the bimini. Anyway, it's been an uneventful day. There's no places here to get ashore, so I'm pretty much been on board. I did fly the drone a couple flights though this afternoon. Unfortunately, the batteries were too low. I had charged them before leaving, but they discharged too much. I was planning to do a recon flight out to the west here to check a river that a guy told me I could probably go up into a lake that's on an island there. So I was thinking of doing that, but I wanted to recon it with the drone before I went over there. It's about a mile away. Batteries were only at 53%, and I wouldn't go with that kind of battery. So the other thing I was trying was to launch from the boat, from the bow, and retrieve to the bow, which I've never done before. And that worked out. Had to come up with a combination that would work. I practiced a little bit before I left home, so I knew what would work in terms of catching it and releasing it to fly. And that pretty much followed what I had trained for. The only thing that I didn't count on was the bimini. I was hoping to be folded back against the cabin, but I forgot that to do that means I have to take the pins out of the forward braces instead of just taking the straps out of it in the back, which is what I did. I just released the back braces that are held by a couple of or webbing. And so I released those and just folded it forward. So it came to about here. And that actually helped because it gave me a little bit of a support to reach out and catch the drone without having to fall over the bow here because there's no rail on the bow. All in all, that worked out. I didn't listen to any books or read anything today. I just messed around with hooking up a different camera set up on the cockpit, trying to get the angle a little lower so that when it's looking at me on the cockpit seat that it looks out to the surrounding area. And the other thing I was going to set up here is that there was a couple of loons that were calling out here making a really loud noise, and I wanted to get that on the tape here, or the video. So they've gone silent. Maybe they'll make noise again here, but my plan tomorrow is to go over and try that river into the lake. If I can get in there and there's a nice anchorage or a nice place to tie up, then I may stay there overnight. Otherwise, I'll just take a look, and if it doesn't look like that's feasible, then I'll backtrack and go down the south again and around the south side of that large island. It's called Shakespeare Island, and it's fairly large. And I'll go around to the kind of the southwest corner. There's a campsite or anchorage there that I can use, so I'll probably do that. The weather today is supposed to be some chance of thunderstorms this evening, and it is clouded up. It's cooled off considerably. I was wearing shirt sleeve shirt earlier, and now all of a sudden I'm in a flannel shirt again. The wind has also come up stronger. It's a good 17 miles an hour. It may be stronger in the gusts. Trees have been blowing pretty good out here. Also rocking and rolling me a little bit even in this protected anchorage. So it's following around the trees here off to my left, and I'm hoping that calms down a little bit for the evening so I can sleep. Last night I woke up a little bit because there was waves slapping against the bow all of a sudden, and that wakes me up. So I got up and looked to see what was going on, and sure enough the wind was supposed to go south, and it did, and it built a little bit, and even though I was reasonably protected, it still was following along the curvatures of the islands there and just following that bay and coming in a little bit too much into that little anchorage. So I was glad to get out of there. Didn't really bother me. I did sleep the rest of the night, but it wouldn't have been tenable there, especially now with the wind as strong as it is. I did go across to look at a campsite that's in a group of islands just to the east, southeast of where I was at, but unfortunately I couldn't get through because there was shoals that pretty much blocked the channel, and it was just too dangerous to try to go through there, especially with the wind blowing. So I backed out and came up here, A guy from Manitowoc, Wisconsin, I met in the harbor, gave me some instructions on how to come in here. So I came up, and he did point out the harbor it was a good place to go, but I thought it was potentially too exposed to possible southwest winds, although it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So I chose not to go in there while I came here, which is just a little bit north, kind of a point that goes out and blocks the wind there. So that's came in and tucked behind that. I noticed when I was flying the drone that there's that campsite is, I don't know if it might have been already full when I came by in the morning, because there was, looked like at least 3 tents. So it must be a big campsite. There was a boat there, and I think there's multiple boats using that. It must be a fishing camp of some kind. That didn't work out, and it's a good thing that I came here, because it looks like that was probably filled this morning. I don't think they did that this afternoon. I think that was already there, and they've been fishing out here today, and I just heard the boats coming back from fishing. Little surprises along the way here. I haven't seen any boats, though. I mean, I've heard those guys, and I saw them on the drone, but I haven't actually seen a boat with my eyeballs ever since I left the harbor. So, or High Hill Harbor, when I left there, I haven't seen a boat since, which is a good thing. But I haven't seen any wildlife either, except for the loons. It's kind of a low terrain around here. It's not high terrain at all. But I think to the west, the islands are a little higher, so we'll see tomorrow. That particular place I'm going is called Ray Lake. It looked to me like there might be some higher terrain around it, and that might make it interesting. So I'm hoping to be able to get in there. The guy from Manitowoc, Jeff was his name, he said that he thought I could get in there because my boat is flat-bottomed and doesn't draw too much. So we'll see. We'll poke in there and see what we can see and then go from there, but that's about it. Otherwise, weather yesterday coming across for the first island, after I launched the boat in the harbor there, I wasn't going to leave. I was going to stay there overnight. I finally got my permit from the harbor master and decided the seas had gone pretty flat, so I thought, now's the time. So I went. I think, it got pretty late by the time I got into the anchorage, and I was starving, but I wanted to take advantage of the calm winds, because it was about a 10-mile leg, and I wanted to get that done in calm seas if possible. So I jumped on it, and it worked out. And today, even though the wind has come up this afternoon, this morning was reasonable. It was only about 9-10 miles an hour, I guess. I don't know exactly what it was, but the waves weren't big or anything. It was very reasonable to come up here. I used the autopilot the whole way, and it worked pretty well. I'm not seeing big problems like I saw yesterday. There was some really oversteering, kind of erratic steering. I don't know if that was a magnetic anomaly that was affecting the compass, or just the compass needing to get stabilized before it worked properly. I don't know, because it was stored inside, and sometimes when you put, if you're not careful about how you handle those electronics, that has a real compass in it. So if you don't, it takes sometimes a while for that to get stable, and that might have been the case. But because it seemed to work the rest of the trip, and then today it worked fine. So we'll see how condition, this today was a good test because there was a kind of a following sea, which is typically hard for an autopilot to handle. Now, granted, the seas weren't very big, but still I felt that was a good test, and it worked fine. So we'll keep doing and see what we see over the length of the trip here, and hopefully that'll work out fine. I'm hoping that I still can find some tie up to shore, because I don't mind anchoring a few days, but it's nice to get off and walk around a little bit. So I'm hoping I find some places like that on the rest of the trip. But so far, 2 days in, I haven't seen anything. So on the way up, I should mention, because I didn't do a video last night, probably should have, but I was just too tired to do that. I did have some trouble with the truck coming up across just before I crossed the border into Canada. The transmission started doing erratic things. It wasn't shifting properly. The indications on the shifter was showing the wrong symbols, it would jump from the fifth gear down to, or fourth gear down to first and then back up. And it wasn't actually doing the shifting, but it was indicating that. And it was also acting funny. So it seemed to sort itself out as I proceeded onward. I decided not to stop. I thought, I'm just going to keep going. It got me to the High Hill Harbor, so we'll see if it gets me home. You guys will find that out eventually, but I'm not sure yet how that's going to go. But the harbor itself is about 3 miles off pavement, and it's a very rough road. I mean, it was so washboardy that it just was ridiculous. I drove 10 to 15 miles an hour for 3 miles because I didn't want to shake the living dickens out of this boat by driving too fast. So any of you folks that want to come up here, just be aware of that. If you're going to drive in that road into High Hill Harbor, you're going to have to go slow because evidently it's not very well maintained. It was pretty rough. And then I got down there, and there was no harbor master, so I couldn't get my permit to launch. And you got to pay for the time you're going to be there. If you're going to store your vehicle there for 3 weeks, you got to pay for it. So that was another reason why I was going to stay overnight. But she ended up coming down there. I sent a message through Jeff, this guy from Manitowoc, and said, hey, would you tell her that I'm down here and I need to get my permit? And so I was told by the city of Beardmore that there would be somebody there, and there wasn't. But she did come down, and I got that sorted out. Since it was early enough, I decided to go ahead and depart, and that worked out too, as you know. Anyway, I think that's enough for tonight. I was hoping the loons would make their calls for your sake, but they did not come back. So tomorrow we'll talk to you then and follow up on how things go in trying to get into the lake tomorrow. It sounded off just after I stopped taping. Kind of interesting. There was a mate that must be calling from the other side of the island. You could maybe barely hear that. And the partner here is right behind me here. You can see a couple hundred yards away calling to his mate. So we'll try that again. Talk to you tomorrow.